them later. All right. Hello, Nadine. What is the mission of your documentary, Last of the Right Whales?
Well, the mission in it, when I do a documentary, is obviously to engage people and entertain them, but also to educate. We're hoping that people will learn a little bit about this species. They're not that well known. They're not like humpbacks. There's only 336 of them left in the world, and so very few people have seen them. And so it's really to bring that story to people so they can start to appreciate this animal and hopefully protect it.
Very nice. Very nice. Noble intentions. How did you get interested in the subject matter?
Well, there was a number of whales that died in 2017. There was actually an unusual mortality event, is what scientists call it. And so 12 of those whales were found in Canadian waters, the Gulf of St. Lawrence, and that was reported in the news, obviously. And then as the necropsies started to discover what had killed the whales, the story really of their entire history started to come to the fore, which was that they were being killed by ship strikes and entanglement.
Okay. So I asked you what the mission of the documentary is. Who's in the way of the mission?
I'm not sure what you mean by that.
Like who's hindering the cause of the right whales, if anyone?
Who's hindering the cause of the right whales? I don't think anyone's doing it purposely. I think the biggest problem that we're facing is a lack of knowledge about what's going on. As I said, most people have never seen a North Atlantic right whale. So to understand what they're facing, the threats that they're facing, and how we all are sort of involved in propagating that, I think is something that needs to be talked about.
Okay, so talk about it. What are the issues surrounding them?
The issue surrounding it is ship strikes. So these animals are being run over by ships, and they're not just container ships or cruise lines. They can be small boats. They can be recreational boaters who are either out fishing or yachting. In fact, while we were filming, 3 calves were killed by smaller boats. And I'm talking about boats that are about 40 feet. So being aware that the whales are there, that they do spend a lot of time at the surface, and that if you're traveling too quickly, you're not going to have an opportunity to see them and slow down. And so when boats are in areas where these whales are known to inhabit, the recommendation is to go 10 knots or slower. And I say recommendations. In some places it's required by law. So just for boaters to be aware of that, and for the maritime industries as well. And the more that people are aware of it, a lot of our products come in through retail shipping. These products are shipped to us. And also people go on cruises. And if the general population starts to make retailers and cruise lines aware of the fact that, these whales are important to us, that they should be looking out for them, then the kind of change that's necessary to protect the whales can start to happen. The same with the fishing industries. It's mostly crab and lobster. It's fishing industries with fixed lines in the water. So a line going from the buoy down to a trap, which sits at the bottom of the ocean. I mean, normally these are left in the water for days while, the fishermen are fishing. And so now fishermen are starting to experiment with different types of systems that don't require that line to stay in the water. They're pop-up systems, so the line is kept on the bottom with the trap and only released to the surface when the fishermen are ready to pick it up.
All right. So this documentary definitely made me appreciate the natural world. And, it's always fun to watch stuff with beautiful photography of the natural world, of truly wondrous things. Do you think people appreciate nature enough?
No, I think too often we're separated from nature, So many of us live in urban centers, myself included. I live in Toronto, and we just don't have an opportunity to appreciate or connect with nature. And I think that's even more so when you talk about the marine environment. And so being able to see these whales and to spend so much time with them over the last 2 years while I was filming is a real blessing in a way, and I understand that most people won't have that opportunity, nor do you want to be harassing animals.
Mm.
So ideally this film shares that experience with people in a way that they can reintroduce nature to their lives and start to appreciate it, so that they can support the kind of protections that are necessary for the natural world to thrive, and us included. Oftentimes I don't think we see ourselves as part of the ecosystem, but we really are a part of it. It's not something that is around us or simply a resource to be used. We are really, like all animals, a part of that ecosystem.
Okay, good stuff. And tell my audience where you primarily shot this documentary.
Yeah, we were filming all along the eastern seaboard. So the primary habitat of this species, the North Atlantic right whale, is from Florida all the way up to the Gulf of St. Lawrence now.
Mm.
And so we shot in Florida, which is their calving ground. So we are there to see moms and calves, in those initial days and weeks of rearing, and what that looks like, seeing the development of the calves. And then we moved to the Cape Cod Bay, which is a primary feeding ground for the whales. Almost 60% of the whales, if not more, are 60-70%.
Oh no. Sorry. Sophie. I'm sorry. Sophie, stop it. Oh God. Sorry about that. I got a terrier, and the mailman is very triggering for him.
It's okay. Is he okay?
He's gonna be okay. He's gonna
Yeah.
unwind it.
Let it.
So we're talking about you were shooting on the East Coast, and how long did it take to shoot the documentary?
About 2.5 years.
Oh.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, with the pandemic, we got slowed down.
Mhm.
So we sort of started and then had to pause and then restarted again. But it actually gave us an opportunity to follow, the story of a whale and her calf over a period of time. That's really, their story, because we have human characters, obviously, in the film, those who are most closely connected and working with the animals, but we also have the story of individual whales. And so we follow the story of Snow Cone, who had her first calf when we were down in the calving grounds in 2020. And over the course of 2.5 years, what happened to her and her calf is really exemplary of what's happening to the entire species. Her calf died and she became entangled. And so this is what we're seeing with the majority of the population. And in fact, North Atlantic right whales rarely die from natural causes anymore. It's always human impact traumas that are causing their death. And so, yeah, it took us 2.5 years, but that expanded production window actually allowed us to see and relate a story in a very compelling way through the story of a mother and her calf.
So COVID kind of helped you.
Kind of. Kind of.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah.
I don't like to say that, but yeah.
What were some of the most notable moments during the shoots?
I would say something that I'll never forget is when we were out with the cinematographer, Nick Hawkins.
Mhm.
And you'll see it toward the end of the film, where we are filming something called a surface active group, where you can have a number of whales. It's a mating behavior, but it's also a social behavior. And so you can have dozens of whales that really look like they're playing at the surface. They're rolling around, they're rubbing each other with their fins or their tails. It's very curious behavior, and it's quite a show if you get to see it. But that can go on for hours. So we were filming that, and then it sort of broke up. The whales went their separate ways, and then 2 of them decided to come over to our boat to see what we were all about. And we were kind of going, what is going on here? because we had no idea what they were going to do. And they were literally came within a few feet of our boat. And we're in a small boat, a 20-foot boat. These whales are like, 16, 17 meters long. They're 60 tons. And both of them just dove and went so gracefully under our boat. They didn't even rock the boat. It was incredible just to see how aware they were of their surroundings and gentle.
Beautiful, beautiful. I remember that moment. It was definitely like the moment of the documentary for sure. What was your road into documentary filmmaking?
I went to journalism school at Carleton University.
Oh, cool.
And I started working in news and current affairs, but very quickly moved to documentary because, the news cycle is very demanding and also limiting. You really don't get a chance to dive into a subject. And so being able to spend 2 years researching and learning about and figuring out how to relay that story to people in a way that really draws them in and makes them curious and to care about something, I think is really what attracted me to the documentary field.
That makes a lot of sense. I sometimes I get tired of how quick segments are in the news.
Yeah. I think people are longing for more context. Our world has become so fast, and with the way information is exchanged now on the internet, the way we receive all of our news, it can be overwhelming. And so sometimes it's nice to just be able to sink into something.
Yeah, definitely. I wish people watch more documentaries and read more books, but that's sort of wishful thinking. What do you say there are reoccurring themes in your work?
Yeah, I mean, all of my work, if you look at the website, is based on social justice issues. And this is actually the first environmental or eco film that I've done, first wildlife film. But in doing it, it's not that different than what I've done in the past. I've done work about juvenile justice and about the right to die and about wealth inequality. And so all of these things, impact the lives that we lead and the quality of life that we have in the society that we live in, the values we hold dear. And although this is a film about whales, it's really about people. It's about how we exist in the world and how we see our role and responsibility within the natural world. And so I think I definitely brought that lens to this documentary, and maybe people filmmakers who focus more on nature documentaries might not have taken that approach. So maybe in that sense, my outlook sort of determined my approach to the film. But I would say that is the commonality in all of my films.
Very interesting. It's interesting how social justice can apply to a nature film.
Yeah.
When can people see the documentary?
Well, we're actually we're going to be in theaters on February 20th, which is World Whale Day. And we're in cinemas across the country, so Cineplex and indie theaters. And we'll also be doing some additional dates around the 20th. And so we're really making it World Whale Week. So we'll be in theaters during that week. Go to the website to find out where to see it on lastoftherightvhales.com. But we have a big impact campaign combined with the rollout of the film. And so we're working with the Canadian Wildlife Federation, IFA, Sierra Club, Canadian Whale Institute, Oceans North, all of these organizations that are really working toward the protection of this species and other marine mammals, but in particular, the North Atlantic right whale. And so they will be at different screenings, doing panel discussions afterwards. So myself and other crew from the film will be there, but also participants who were in the film, like Moira Brown, will be at some of the screenings, and then along with some of the folks who are leading those organizations I mentioned, Chambriant and others, will be there to talk about what people can do, how they can become involved in helping to protect this species.
All right, well, Nadine, thank you very much for your time. I really enjoyed your documentary, Last of the Right Whales. Before I let you go, one more question. Could you tell me if there were other documentaries or even narrative films that might have influenced this one?
Wow. It's such a, I mean, I was going to say Blackfish. I love Blackfish, totally different kind of film. No, that was really an investigation um, about, a cover up. So that is a different style of film, but certainly the impact of that, The Cove, like those films that really had a big impact on marine mammals and their protection and care. I think from a philosophical standpoint, those really influenced me. In terms of the filming, I mean, you can't do better than Blue Planet, right? So all that entire series obviously influences. Yeah. Didn't have those kind of budgets to work with, but we're definitely shooting for that with the aerial cinematography. And one of the great things about these whales is they actually spend a fair bit of time at the surface for certain behaviors. So with the mom calves, they can spend 7-8 hours at the surface. When they're skim feeding, it's just an incredible thing to witness, and quite filmable. And same with the surface active groups that I described earlier. When they're involved in that kind of play at the surface, you can get some really spectacular footage. And so that's what we are shooting for.
Okay, well, thank you very much for your time, Nadine.
Thank you. I appreciate it.